These are the most emotional moments in racing history, and we gotta start here. This driver became world champion, but didn't live to see it. Jochen Rindt was a multiple F1 race winner, even Le Mans winner. But in the beginning, Jochen had a rough start in his career. But because he was so talented and a hard worker, he finally got the opportunity to race in F1 in 1969. And right from the beginning, it was magic. He got so good that literally by next year, he started to fight for the championship. Right from the gate, he won 5 races out of the first 8, thus giving him a commanding lead. Clearly, he must be very happy with his performance. But sadly, that happiness went away very soon. Just a few days later, Jochen's friends and fellow competitors, Piers Courage and Bruce McLaren, both passed away due to racing crashes. This had a huge impact on Jochen. He was so devastated that he even thought of retiring from racing, especially since he had a young daughter. But sadly, he didn't. At the next race's practice session, Jochen took his Lotus out of the pits, but unfortunately, he never made it back. During that practice, Jochen had hit the guardrail at Parabolica. He suffered major injuries, which ultimately took away his life. In the remaining races, no one was able to surpass Jochen's points total. He was so far ahead of his competitors that ultimately, Jochen was declared as the F1 World Champion. Man, I wish he would have retired. May he rest in peace. Now, some racing stories fortunately didn't end this way, but that doesn't mean they weren't emotional. Take Esteban Ocon, for example. Sure, he's been in F1 for a while, but this driver has faced tough times in his career. Esteban Ocon isn't like the typical other drivers. His childhood was far different than his peers. Ocon's childhood was so tough, his family had to actually sell their house to keep his racing career alive.
Sold the garage, sold the house. The house and the garage was the same place anyway.
Esteban and family were literally living in a caravan for a few years, just to achieve the dream of driving in F1 and to win in F1. And then, the opportunity came. Esteban started his F1 career with Force India, and right from the beginning, he started to show his talents. I mean, he was killing it. But you know, Formula One is a funny sport. The talent part is not enough to stay in F1. So when Force India was sold, the new owner, Lawrence Stroll, already had a driver in his mind, which I guess you know who. So clearly, this was a disadvantage for Esteban. Just like most other teams, everybody needed talent as well as financial backing. Somebody who can bring money as well to the team. And so, sadly, Ocon got dropped by Racing Point in 2018. But he still didn't give up. After 1 year staying off track with Mercedes as their reserve driver, Esteban came back to F1 with Renault, now also known as Alpine. The dream was very much the same, to win in F1. But that was impossible, at least at that time. Renault weren't quick enough to be at the top, so for the first couple of years, no races were won by Esteban, not even a podium. But then, the opportunity finally came at the Hungarian GP. Now, Alpine was still not fast enough to win the race, but due to multiple events.
And there's Lando Norris touched with Perez, and that's the Alfa Romeo and AlphaTauri getting caught down the order. Yeah, Max Verstappen has got caught out with...
Somehow, Esteban found himself leading the race. He was doing everything he could to win. He even held off the great Sebastian Vettel.
I know how aggressive Seb is, and quickly I realized my weaker spot was turn 1.
Almost Sebastian Vettel getting past Esteban Ocon.
Yeah, I've managed to hold him off.
But still, turns out it wasn't enough. Esteban had one more challenge to face: Lewis Hamilton. After the Mercedes legend dropped to the back of the grid, he was catching up fast. He already went up from P14 to P5 with about 20 more laps remaining. So given the Mercedes pace, and of course Lewis Hamilton, it was only a matter of time before he takes over the lead. So now, Ocon needed some kind of miracle. After all, it was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for him. Finally, he could fulfill his dream, his family's dream. And then, the miracle happened. And the name of that miracle? Fernando Alonso.
Alonso stays ahead, but this is going to carry on and on. Fernando Alonso gets better traction.
Alonso defended so well, he kept the faster Hamilton behind for more than 10 laps. And when Hamilton finally overtook him, unfortunately, it was too late for him. With little laps left, Ocon had a sufficient lead in front. And so, after 70 laps of hard racing, after more than 10 years of sacrifice,
no one's challenging Ocon for the win now. Ocon wins the Hungarian Grand Prix! I could not be more pleased for that man.
Now that's a dream come true. But now, here's the most heartbreaking moment, which brought the entire world together. In the mid-2000s, Michael Schumacher got the second most race wins at the time in F1. It was a big achievement. But when Schumacher got to hear about this, the unexpected happened.
Do those records mean a lot to you?
Yes.
Thanks, Michael.
Michael rarely shows this type of emotion. He's the 7-time champ and even had 91 race wins in his career, both of which are record numbers, by the way. But for either of those, he was never this emotional. So why did this second most race wins record mean so much to him? Well, it's all because of what happened on the dreadful day in 1994. At the San Marino Grand Prix, Roland Ratzenberger, who had competed in just 3 F1 races, crashed his car into a wall during qualifying at 195.7 miles per hour. Unfortunately, the crash was so extreme, it resulted in his loss. It was truly a sad time for F1. All the drivers were shaken by this. But unfortunately, that wasn't all. The next day, Ayrton Senna, one of the best F1 drivers in history, was racing, with Michael Schumacher behind him. Everything was going normally. Senna was racing well. But then, suddenly, the whole universe changed. Ayrton Senna crashed. He crashed badly. He lost control and hit an exposed concrete barrier at a speed of about 192 miles per hour. In just a second, the whole racing community came to a standstill.
World motor racing champion Ayrton Senna crash at this afternoon's San Marino Grand Prix.
The incident was completely horrifying. Red flags came out and the race crew started to take Senna to medical care. But unfortunately, it wasn't of much use. The crash was so severe that sadly, Senna didn't make it.
3 times world motor racing champion has died after crashing.
The world lost a legend that day. There are even rumours that Senna was considering not to compete in that Grand Prix, as he was so devastated by Ratzenberger's passing. But sadly, the Brazilian decided to race. It was even revealed that an Austrian flag was recovered from Senna's car, showing the Brazilians' intent of raising the flag in honour of Ratzenberger at the end of the race. This shows the kind of guy Senna was. Ayrton Senna has been the face of racing since the day he joined F1. His natural abilities, insane work ethic, and his helpfulness made him one of the greatest drivers in history. When another racing driver, Eric Comas, had crashed badly in Spa 1992, Senna literally stopped on track, got out, and risked his own life to help Comas. This is why Senna's a legend. And because of this, his presence was much bigger than just in the racing community. When Senna passed away, the government of Brazil had declared 3 days of national mourning. The whole country came to a halt. No one could believe it. Even Michael Schumacher couldn't feel anything after that San Marino incident.
I can't feel satisfied. Never have seen something like this.
And so, when Schumacher got the second most race wins record in that 2000 race, it meant that he had now won the same number of races as Ayrton Senna. This is what Senna meant to the world. A legend who graced us with his talents on track, who even gave away millions to support underprivileged children. That, my friends, was Ayrton Senna.